Yes, welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another one of our season 51 cast preview podcasts. Here today to talk about James Austin Johnson returning to the show for his fifth season at Saturday Night Live. And joining me here today is the great Bill Kenney. Bill, how are you?
Good, John. I'm excited to talk about him. It feels like just yesterday that we were talking about season 47 preview with who's this James Austin Johnson guy?
Yeah,
And
he looks like he could be pretty good.
yeah, and look what he's become, pretty much in short order. And he's had quite a career already.
He has, and I'm really excited that he's returning to the show. He was the one that Lorne, he's like the prince who was promised. He's the one who Lorne said, like, for sure he's coming back. No doubt he'll be there right away when he was first talking about season 51 before all of the crazy news that we've gotten over the last few weeks. So his job, Jeopardy, has not been in doubt, and I think he will be there for a while. He's established himself having a very strong role at the show, playing the current president of the United States. And yeah, you would expect that this is going to only continue to further his trajectory at the show. How are you feeling overall about James returning to the show this season?
It makes the most sense. I mean, he's the best impressionist we've had since Jay Farrow, and he really has cemented himself. I think it would be interesting to think about other timelines where we didn't have the current president. Where would James's career be? But I think he'd still be fine because he has so many impressions in his back pocket that he's able to do anything. So the fact that he is on the fast track to becoming number two all time in presidential impressions, John, well, if he does it 15 times this year, he'll pass Baldwin, and then he would only be behind Daryl Hammond doing Clinton. So that's incredible when you think about the history of the show, all the different impressions that we've gotten. Nobody's done it quite as much as James has.
And money on the line, is he going to do it 15 times this year?
Absolutely. I'm taking that over.
Yeah, so I would expect a lot from James Austin Johnson, who he appeared in 76 sketches last year, so that's tied for third. So he wasn't just doing the Trump thing, he was in a lot of sketches. We'll talk about what we expect to see from him. I think he's at an interesting point in his career where I think he just passed over the point where things were or could have been like a little shaky for him. So he was like only like a year and a half ago, like he was playing Biden, and I guess it was a little bit longer than that, but like he was playing Biden and Trump on the show. And everyone's like, how is this going to work headed towards the season 50 2024 election? And they removed that impression from him. They give it to Mikey and then eventually Dana. So like, that's like one, like, oh, okay. Like, are they into the whole James thing? And then reports came out that they offered the Trump impression to Shane Gillis last year between 49 and 50. And he was like, I don't want to do it. But had he done it, then it's like, oof, is there something there for James? Because first of all, like, we are the biggest champions of Judge here at the SNN. Like, every time he's in a sketch and he's not doing the Trump thing, and he's doing other impressions or he's playing characters, we're like, yes, give us more of this. But it's not like it ever got to a point where he was doing it so many times or so many like impactful moments that people were talking about week after week that we felt like, okay, his job security is 100% there. Now that we've passed that point and he's firmly established himself with this role, playing somebody who will inevitably be there for the next few years, and also some people above him had started to lead the show, I think we're in a great spot for James in season 51.
I would think so. And it's interesting to think about season 49. So 49, we're seeing a lot more of him doing those father roles, boyfriend roles, things like that. We didn't see that as much in 50. So that would be my only concern point, but it's a really small concern because, again, he is going to do this impression week after week. Trump's always in the news, so that's not going to go away. And it makes sense. And he's the king of the cold opens now with this, with the way that he's taken this on. I spoke about this briefly during our countdown this summer, but when I saw him in Jamestown, he was talking about, Streeter was talking about the fact that he's given a leeway that nobody else on the show is ever given. He kind of improvs a few of those moments when they do those freeze frames and the people behind him. And, you know, SNL is a very scripted, cue card heavy show. So to give that kind of leeway to somebody who's only been on the show for 4 years is really saying something to what the show and Lauren thinks of him.
I do really think he follows in the footsteps of Dana Carvey, who used to work with Jim Downey on those cold opens. And then I think, they were mostly on the cards, but still, like, he had a little bit of leeway to do the George H.W. Bush mannerisms, which followed in the footsteps of Chevy as Ford, who was able to improvise and do those things. So I think he's in he's a part of a great lineage of people who were able to pull that off. And a lot of the cold opens are written by James with the head writers like Streeter. So it makes sense. And I think he's firmly established himself as being a large part of this cast. We talked about the departures of people like Heidi and Ego, who were there from before James joined the show. How do you feel like the show is going to be affected, and James specifically, with those departures?
Not a lot, because other than losing his Millie Pounds and Surety partner in Devon, there's not a lot of male turnover. Even though we did lose some men, they weren't doing a lot on the show. So we didn't lose a Mikey. So if you lose a Mikey or a Keenan, you're like, okay, well, now James is going to be doing game show hosts. He's going to be doing more of the man on the street, father, husband. Those people haven't left. So I don't think anything's really changed for him in that regards. There might be a little bit more of a burden on the men to carry things because there's less females, which is crazy in 2025. So you may see more sketches that lean in that direction, but I don't think his career changes at all based on that.
I think there's like an indirect positive consequence of it, which is that with Heidi and Ego no longer being there, Sarah Sherman takes a really important role at the show. And I think that Sarah and James do have that they came into the show together thing going on.
Yeah.
So, like, them being rookies and then on the same career trajectory makes them feel like you would see them together in sketches more. And I've talked about this a little bit with the Sarah podcast that you'll hear tomorrow, and the Andrew one that we just did with Sammy yesterday. But like, I do feel like there's like a little bit of a nucleus there with Sarah, James, and Andrew that could be very powerful at the show this season, despite Mikey and Keenan, some of the veterans still being there. Like, they're sort of becoming the veteran group that could have an influence in having one or two sketches a show, where like Andrew's very big in the writer's room. Everyone's going to want to write for Sarah, and James is a really good player to put in any sketch. Like, I think he elevates everything he's in. So I would think that nucleus is going to be a very important one this season.
That's a good point. And we did see Mikey take a little bit of a step back. Of course, we saw Keenan take a little bit of a step back the last couple of years. So that is a strong point. And we didn't get a lot of the Jazz Mukes last year. That was something that we were really hoping we would see more of after the jingle pitches that we saw, and the Toyota ad. I mean, that's going back a couple of years, but they work really well together. They tour together. So they're obviously very close. So it would be great to see Jazz and Dismukes doing some more work this year as they did in 48, 49.
We did see a couple of things from them. They weren't as significant, I would say, but one was that BuzzFeed red carpet sketch that we got to I think it was at the end of the Paul Mescal episode,
Mm-hmm.
where we saw Springsteen and Bob Dylan there, impressions from them. So that was one thing that I think they worked on together. And then the other big one was that Snakeskin Kings of Sex Rock CD that they did together with Sarah and James and Andrew. And like, that's the type of thing that I wonder if maybe we would see from them together.
That's possible. Yeah, I mean, they all seem to have. I mean, Dismukes and Sarah's humor is so different than most people that we see on SNL. But James seems to slide really well into that. We saw that with Lake Beach too. Remember Lizards? I know you love that one, John. But so he does have that kind of weird streak inside of him, besides playing these impressions that we see, and more of the straight roles, quote unquote. So yeah, I can definitely see that happen.
Yeah, I think the other ones to consider, they did the snake skin at the end of the Jake Gyllenhaal episode in season 49 that I think they wanted to bring back. Not snake skin, snake eyes. Was that what it is?
Snake Eyes. Yeah,
Snake
yeah,
eyes. Yes, very
yeah.
similar. A lot of snakes happening in this area of the SNL cast. Snake eyes that I think they wanted to bring back. Also, we had the Gallagher brothers, the Oasis guys, with Sarah and James last year on Update. So yeah, I am curious if we're going to see James operate more in that silo of being the cold open guy and staying there in the way that was more Hammond, or he's going to be brought into other things. My wishful thinking and hope is that he will be a part of this nucleus and be a big part of this season. From an overall legacy watch perspective, now that we're 4 years into his career and we would expect that he's going to be there at least the next 3 seasons based on his major role. So let's say we're at the halfway point of James Austin Johnson's career. How do you feel like his legacy does compare to some of the other great impressionists that we've seen from SNL past?
Well, it's the Hall of Fame tracker, right? We've seen that. We see that on baseball shows and things like that. So, as I said at the top, like this is very interesting to think about when politics has been such a huge part of the show for so long. Dana did Bush, 39 times. Danny did Jimmy Carter 29 times. So there is something there. Now people are staying longer than they did in those days. So, but the fact that he's again only 4 seasons in, and how much he's done this, and SNL seems to have learned their lesson. Knock on every piece of wood you have from the 2016 to 2020 era, where they were bringing in all these cameos and things like that. They seem to be keeping it to the cold open for the most part, and James just shines there. His first episode was he did the cold open. He had to carry that on his back in the very first moments he was on the show. So he was a possible Hall of Famer from very episode one that he was on. So I think if he continues in the way, but I would like to see him doing more than the cold opens if you're going to put him in the conversation with people like Dana, because Dana was doing a lot of other stuff besides Bush. Danny Aykroyd was doing a lot more besides Jimmy Carter. Daryl, same way with Clinton. So I'd like to see them branch out. They don't do impressions as much as they used to on the show outside of political stuff. We saw Melissa and Chloe suffer from that because they don't go to that as much as they used to. But he can do these other things too. So hopefully he expands his horizons outside of what he was doing in 50, and we see him on other stuff. And I think, another 4 or 5 years, we could be talking about him as one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I'm very pro. Let's get James in those husbands and dads roles once again,
Absolutely.
as you said. I think that's a great thing. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, and without getting into the specifics of the politics and all of the, everything that's been going on in the world, I would love to know from your perspective how SNL may potentially change the way that they approach the Trump impression with James this season, because we are recording this shortly after Kimmel's been taken off the air and Colbert, and obviously like the landscape of late night TV is in flux right now. And Lorne has come out and said, like, he's been in touch with the people at Comcast and everything is good, and Seth's show and Jimmy's show and SNL, like everything's fine. Like Lorne is the, the king of the North. Like he's holding things together right now. But like, is it possible that the approach is like slightly different, where we're very far removed from Alec Baldwin's impression of Trump that was more of like a hateful impression compared to James? Do you see anything operating differently in 51 versus 50?
No, because I think they've already made that shift. I think it's much more of a cutesy impression, kind of like Will's W, where there wasn't a lot of animosity there. It was more about, look at how funny and goofy I am, and James has already taken in that direction away from what Baldwin was doing and things of that nature. So, do I think there's a chance that they won't continue to do that? I mean, I guess it's possible, because I certainly wouldn't have thought we've gotten to the point that we have with Kimmel and Colbert. But I think Comcast and NBC and Lorne, as the person that he is, has a little bit more power than what we're seeing with some of these other stations and broadcast networks. So I think he's placating people with certain things that are going on in the show. So I think we can still see this. I think it'll be much the same as we saw in 50.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that that was part of the discussion we were having towards the end of 50, where we were seeing a lot of James doing the thing where he interrupts and things are happening, the tableau, things are happening behind him, and he's talking to the audience and he's getting very meta. That was what they did in the season finale. So, I mean, that's an interesting question of like, do they continue to go back to that well? Because that's just the best way that they can make fun of Trump's insane ability to just ramble on and on and on about things
Right.
versus actually attacking the guy or his policies. And I think that is a conversation we will continue to have about James as Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the only thing they even touched on as far as like actual headlines was the tariffs. And that was more of a like, isn't this goofy, these charts that we're looking at? Like, it wasn't like a hit piece. And SNL doesn't do that anymore. So, again, I think that was something that they didn't want to do again with the way they did it with Baldwin. So, I think we'll see much more of those, yeah, those freeze frames that we saw so much.
Yeah, it is definitely fascinating to think about. Do you think, and this is a little off topic from James, but just while we're on the subject, do you think that SNL will address what has happened to Colbert and Kimmel on Weekend Update potentially with like somebody like Joseph J?
I mean, wish list time, I would think like that's a good opportunity to bring in somebody like Fallon, Seth Meyers, who are, right downstairs. And, they had them in the audience at Colbert when everything went down with Colbert about a month or two ago. So, yes and no. I don't think they'll hit it head on. I think they're going to take the opportunity that this will be a few weeks out in the pasture to maybe avoid it completely.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about it. I think at like another time and place, maybe another era, Kimmel finds his way onto Weekend Update to give a commentary.
Sure.
Um, I wonder if SNL is going to take the approach of trying to move away from the fire a little bit and then letting things calm down so that they can operate on their own.
Yeah.
Because NBC is kind of looking like the lone survivor of what's happening right now
Honestly.
in late night television. And certainly James Austin Johnson is going to be one of the biggest faces of all of that this coming season. So overall, Bill, do you have any predictions for James? Anything that you're really excited to see coming up in season 51?
I mean, again, I really hope that we get to see more impressions from him. One of my favorite things that he did was when he went to the update desk a couple seasons ago, and they had 2 minutes to fill. And what are they going to do? And he trots out his Jay Z, which is the only way he can do that, right? So he's doing Jay Z in the basement, Beyonce, Beyonce, and then he brought it out again last year in the courtroom where they all wanted to be excused from jury duty. So he was supposed to be like a radio DJ that was uh, doing the Jay Z impression, calling people up. So I would love to see more of his impressions because he has such a wealth of ability to do something like that. His Adam Driver was great. I mean, we've seen him do all those like inside the NBA stuff with Ernie Johnson. I know you've wanted to see more of his Louis C.K., right? I mean, that I don't
Have I
know that
said
you
that?
have you said. I thought you said that.
I don't think I said that.
Well, when he did it with the Sudeikis episode, and that was really the only time we got to see that. So I'm not putting you on the spot, John.
No, you're not putting. You never put me on the spot, but I just don't recall past
I
John
thought
saying
you had said that. I'll have to go back to the tape, but
that. Okay, roll the tape.
I think that's a good impression. I don't know where it fits in the grand scheme of things, but if you got somebody like Keenan in the building who could do these family feud things or Black Jeopardy, you can trot out impressions in those regards, and I would love to see more of that from him.
Yeah, me too. I would agree with that. I also would love to see him in the monologue. I think that that's a thing that like it's really hard for SNL to do, given that he's in the Trump prosthetics for the cold open. But if there is an episode that comes up where they're not using the Trump impression and he's not in the cold open, I would love to see James push to be in a monologue, whether it's as himself or next to a host doing some sort of impression. I think that's the type of thing that the show could use, even though he's so front facing at the start, like just to get people to know him even more, like they did that time on Update, I think is really important. So that would be like my one wish list thing for James this season. But overall, he's clearly going to be one of the stars of season 51. And I'm very excited to get to see everything we're going to see from him this season. So we want to know what you think of James Austin Johnson this season and any predictions and hopes you have. So make sure to leave a comment on our YouTube video to let us know what you would like to see from the great James Austin Johnson. And of course, we are doing these cast previews every single day leading up to the start of the season, where we will be talking about all of the new cast members that we will see, from the rookies to all of the returning vets coming back. So I'm very excited for season 51. We will also have our preseason roundtable and our draft coming up as well. We talked about the newly announced hosts and musical guests a few days ago. So a really great time to be a Saturday Night Live fan and jump back into season 51. Bill, I cannot wait to cover it all with you. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, John. Yeah, as it gets closer, it's just so exciting to think about. Even with all the changes, even with beloved cast members leaving, I think we're in for a fun ride all through season 51. So I can't wait to be here with you.
Yeah, I can't wait to be with you here too. And if you haven't gotten enough of Bill and I will be live later tonight to talk through the 50 greatest episodes of Saturday Night Live as voted by you. We've been counting them down all summer and revealing them week by week. So in case you missed that and you don't want to be spoiled, you can watch the reveals, go through all of the episodes. And then tonight, we're going to be talking about the episodes that just missed the cut. So those are the ones that where you're like, where was this one? We will tell you. We're going to go through all the fun stats. We'll be there with Thomas Senna to talk through everything on the show tonight. So hopefully you will join us for that. To never miss any of the shows here at the SNN, please subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. And you can follow us on social media at the SNL Network to never miss anything we have over there. Bill, where can the listeners find you?
Find me on Instagram or Twitter at BKLove73.
Yeah, back on the X. Happy to have you there.
Back on the bird.
Great stuff, Bill. I want to thank Late Nighter for being our presenting partner for the show here today. And on behalf of everyone at the SNN, my name is John Schneider, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.
It's on the Saturday Night Network.